Welcome to another episode of the Coastal Feuds podcast. I'm your host, Braden Plord. Alongside me is Arjun Pirani and our very first guest on the Coastal Feuds podcast, the man, the myth, the legend, Oliver Aurora. We are super pumped to have you here, Oliver. It's great to have a first guest on the podcast. And we're just going to start right away with college football. FSU, the worst possible start that you could have envisioned for a program that ended within the top, that started top 10, AP top 10 this year, and ended just outside the college football playoff, goes 0-3 after a loss to Memphis. Just, I don't know what's been going on with FSU. I don't know if it's just because the recruiting's been there. They got a bunch of transfers. They're spending this NIL money. So I don't know what the problem is. Do you got what are you guys seeing from Florida State this season?
Personally, I think it's a lack of leadership in the locker room from DJ put the fries in the bag. I really think he's just not stepping up to the plate here, and I really do think he's not the man for the job. He was the second highest recruit in his class with Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud was three, Bryce Young was one, and well, one of them is doing good in the league, right? But Bryce Young was the first overall pick, and DJ Uiagalelei is on his third college in around 4 years. He's not going to save them. He's going to end up in the Canadian Football League at this point.
Yeah, I think it's one thing to be like a red shirt or like a true freshman and come in here and start 0-3, which is like it's understandable, it's a new setting, but like it's definitely not good. He is a grown ass man competing against little guys and he's 0-3. And I think like it is a lack of leadership, but it speaks volumes to like I think his ability to play at this level. I don't think he is the right answer for FSU at all moving forward. I think they have to just I mean, they're not going anywhere this season. 0-3 start to three pretty not like Boston College is a good team, but like not great teams. I think Mike Norvell gets fired, and I think they just gotta like work for the future now because what they have right now is just clearly not clicking.
And what I will say is that I did see a stat that I'm not sure if you guys are aware about this, but some big name schools pay smaller schools to come play them. So they paid
Hmm.
Memphis $1.3 million, and Memphis still won. It's kind of
Yeah,
like what happened in Michigan back in the day with Appalachian State. They paid them 1 million, they lost, and then because of the contract, they had to pay them another 1 million.
yeah,
That's
it
what
works
happened.
like
Yeah, it's
you
what
got it.
happened with NIU too. Yeah, keep going
Hmm.
on.
Yeah, it's just for like the smaller schools, right? It's a win-win because the big schools you're supposed to go out there and blow them out, like set an example on the college stage and like run up the score so you can get ranked. And then for like these small teams, it's like they fund your program, you get like national television televised recognition. So like it's really hurts FSU here, especially when they go out there and lose.
And I will say, Mike Norvell used to coach at Memphis. Before his gig at Florida State, he played at Memphis because Penn State played them in the 2019 Cotton Bowl. And I remember it was like 2 days after we had played them, and he got the job at Florida State. And I was like, oh man, this guy might actually be good. And now we're sitting here 5 years later, and he's 0-3 after a close college football playoff season, undefeated season, that is, except for the blowout against Georgia. And he lost to his coaching alma mater.
Yeah, I think another huge factor was that I think it was they had 9 players that left for the NFL draft, the transfer portal. We saw Keon Coleman go in the second round, Jared Verse go in the first round, Braden Fisk go in the second round, and we saw Jordan Travis also leave and Trey Benson. So that was just a huge majority of their starting offense. Another key player was Johnny Wilson, the 6'7" receiver. He went to the Eagles, and I think just losing all that with DJ Uiagalelei, he hasn't really proved himself everywhere he's gone. I saw a thing where he was almost getting masked like of his ability at Oregon State because they had such a good offensive line and run game that when they would set up a play action, it would just be easy checkdowns and opportunities for him. So it was kind of like putting on this disguise of how you were, and then you go to Florida State where you're in the ACC and you're playing these, I guess, tougher schools. And it's not even the tough schedule that they've played these first couple games. It's just he hasn't been able to live up to that expectation. And it's being really detrimental to Florida State. And this season is going downhill pretty quickly. And a season that almost went downhill pretty quickly was Georgia at Kentucky, squeaking by with that win. There was a controversial pick six that went Kentucky's way, but was eventually called back. That was another game where Georgia didn't really play well. Carson Beck under 150 yards, I think it was. The offense just wasn't clicking, and I don't know. Kentucky just seemed to almost get away with a win.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see this Georgia team for the rest of the year. Like, definitely, I mean, per usual with like Georgia, they're such a strong program. They come out there, it's a shocker when they lose because that's just the standard they set. And it was a really shaky game against Kentucky. I think the AP poll came out today and it had Texas at one, Georgia at two, and I think they're lucky to be at two. We saw Bama run Wisconsin out of the park, which kind of sucked being a Wisconsin fan. But I think Georgia, they really need to hone in here and lock in because I think they're lucky to get away with being two after that performance against Kentucky.
Yeah, honestly, I'm gonna be honest. I didn't really watch the game. I saw the Bleacher Report notification, and then I watched like the final 2 minutes. And I will say, Georgia didn't look like it was at its prime form. I would say it looked kind of. There were definitely some hiccups in the offense, like you guys were saying. There were some third down conversions that I just didn't think worked out well. And it was also a super defensive game, which isn't something you see out of Georgia a lot. Georgia's more of like a high power, high scoring offense, which I thought was super surprising.
So another team that I want to touch on is Oregon because I know that in the past episode we've talked about them is their first week they won against Idaho and they only won by 10 points. Then the next week they are in a firefight with Boise State. Ashton GT goes crazy on them, 6 touchdowns, hundreds of yards against them. But now they finally seem like they're in their midseason form. They went to Oregon State, they blew them out. Dylan Gabriel and the offense looked good. It seems like Oregon's now starting to find its footing this season after a little bit of a bumpy start. Despite the fact they are undefeated, they started slipping a bit down the AP polls. I haven't seen the new AP poll, but I would assume that they're still in the top 10. So for me, it seems that Oregon is starting to pick up kind of the expectations that they began with at the beginning of the season.
I will
Yeah.
say, I think this game was sort of like a statement game for the Ducks. I will say they after the first quarter it was tied, but in the second half they completely shut down Oregon State, made it a shutout in the second half, and they just ran up the score. And I think it ended up being 49-14.
14. Yeah.
Yeah, and I really just think that we're finally seeing how dangerous Oregon can be, even though it was a slow start. They could be dangerous in the Big Ten this year.
Yeah. I think it's a good time to get hot, especially for them. Oregon State, it's a rivalry game. They're going to come out firing and playing at their best. I think Tez Johnson had a really nice game, like 110 yards, I want to say. And then they play UCLA and Michigan State next, so need to pick up the pace there and get those wins because then they have Ohio State, which will be one of the games of the season at the Big Ten. So it's a good time for Oregon to find their footing now to prep for that game.
So I think it might have been, correct me if I'm wrong, the only ranked matchup of the week, Boston College versus Missouri. Boston College got off to a really fast start against the Tigers. They had some early touchdowns. Thomas Castellanos, he was looking really well, but then he threw an interception, I believe it was either late second or early third, that just led to Florida State gaining, or excuse me, Missouri gaining all this momentum. Luther Burden, he had a really quiet start to begin the game, but then exploded onto the scene, showing that why he's one of the top wide receiver prospects for the upcoming draft. And I don't know, it showed Missouri had like resilience and trust in their team that, okay, yeah, we are down against Boston College, the 24th ranked team in the nation, but we are the 6th ranked team and we can come back and get a win. I can't remember what the final score was, but I thought that was a really good look for Missouri to show that, hey, even though if we are losing a game, we can find and build our own momentum to try and go out there and get another win.
Yeah, I will say this was a very good game, objectively speaking. The 27-21 win for Missouri was defining, but also I think Castellanos' two picks were a huge aid to them. Personally, I don't think they would win without him throwing two picks. I think that Boston College offense is just too powerful with him. I think they would squeak one out. But I will say Missouri did get lucky, and I did think they hung in there. And it did help that Luther Burden started to pick up in the second half.
Yeah, I'll agree with you there. I don't think that Mizzou really had a like a super. I mean, they won. Credits to them. 11-point comeback. No one can really discredit that. But I also think that Boston College really made it easy on them to come back there. Mizzou they ranked sixth going into that game, which I personally thought was a little too high. I'm not too high on this Mizzou team, and I think that really showed this week. Boston College they went into Missouri and they really played a good game, and I think they just beat themselves up at the end. So it'll be interesting to see how Mizzou play the rest of the year.
Now, I want to head back to the SEC where it was a big matchup between LSU and South Carolina. And we've seen South Carolina in the years past have really good games against higher ranked teams. I remember a couple years ago how they went out against Tennessee, where Hendon Hooker unfortunately tore his ACL, and how they destroyed a really good Tennessee team. Now, they went in against LSU and they were looking extremely good, but then their starting quarterback, he went down with an apparent leg injury. I can't remember if it was knee or ankle, and I think it was a redshirt freshman came in to try and finish the game, and LSU finally showing that they do have the ability to finish games, which was ultimately the biggest reason why they lost week 1 against USC.
Yeah, I will say the starting quarterback for USC, which is I think is the most fun name to say in college football, Lenoris Sellers. Dude going down was definitely a big loss for the Gamecocks. But I will say the officiating in the game, it's all over Instagram, it's all over social media. People are trying to say that the crew should be investigated because the calls that were in the game, from what I've heard and from the clips that I've seen, are kind of crazy when you look at it. Like there was a blocked punt that was technically illegal, which LSU was trying to fight for. I'm not sure if you guys have seen the clip. We can pull it up later, but apparently there was like an illegal formation or something on the blocked punt, and it's super apparent and obvious, but the refs just didn't see it. So I think that was questionable.
Yeah, I didn't watch much of the game. I didn't watch the game here. I just looked at the box score and the highlights, so I don't really have much input here. But I saw that Sellers went down early. I think you can credit the USC's their running game. Sanders had a really nice game, 143 yards, 2 touchdowns. I think they had like 250 rushing yards after he went down. So I think they did a nice job there adapting and working through it. But I couldn't really tell you about like the officiating or anything like that 'cause I didn't really watch it.
Yeah, I think that if Lenora Sellers did stay in that game, I would think that South Carolina would come up on top because when he was playing, there was no answer. He was slinging the ball downfield. He had a 70 plus yard rushing touchdown, which is extremely impressive for a quarterback, let alone any rush. And like you just said, Sanders had a really good game. Ground, they were running the ball. They weren't really too dependent on their backup quarterback for the passing situations. He doesn't have a whole lot of game experience. Maybe didn't get as many reps as he did during training camp, or just being a backup, you weren't prepared for those types of situations. And that was ultimately what cost them in the end. It was a little heartbreaking. I was watching the game live and I saw them miss the field goal. And it was kind of I really did feel bad because the South Carolina student section was behind the bush and they were all ready to rush the field despite the fact that they were still down by 3. They're in field goal range, and then South Carolina ultimately misses the field goal and the student section just has to go home after being prepared to rush the field. So I thought that was a little bit of a depressing aspect of it. But I also know that we all have our own college football teams we all like. So I was going to ask you guys, how did you guys play this week, if at all?
So for Penn State, I'll spare all of it for right now. Penn State was a bye week. We did drop to 10 in the AP poll, which was expected. We will be playing Kent State next week, which just got decimated by Tennessee 71-0. So I pray that the team wakes up and we don't have another Bowling Green situation. Otherwise, I think I will lose my mind.
Yeah, Van Dyke went down. Our quarterback. I'm a Wisconsin fan. Like he went down really early, and Bama. I read a stat that's their 53rd straight win against a non-conference opponent that is not ranked. So like I didn't really have expectations going into this game, but Van Dyke going down out for the season really hurts. Pretty uninspiring. Like we got handed. I don't think we were really close in that game ever. Milroe just dominated running and passing the ball. and we have USC, Southern California next week. So that won't be exciting. Um, and yeah,
I
not much
And
to
will
talk about.
say there was a lot of doubts in the offseason about Kalen DeBoer. I think he stepped up well in filling Saban's shoes. I know he didn't fill Saban's shoes because he hasn't won anything yet, but so far, Wisconsin I felt like was the first test for them, an out of conference opponent on the road. But I think they performed
Yeah.
above expectations.
Something I thought was funny though, I saw a quote. It was one of the receivers. I'm blanking on his name, but he said like something about like the jump around, and it was pretty disrespectful. And I just found it funny because it's kind of a different environment in DeBoer's locker room because I feel like that would never fly under Saban's
Oh
team. So it's a changing in the locker room, feels like.
you said Van Dyke is out for the rest of the season?
I'm pretty sure. I read a report something like that, or it's for a while. It was bad.
that's a tough break.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
not great.
is pretty bad. And if you guys don't already know, I am an Iowa fan, and we had Troy this week, which we took care of business. I think we scored 38 points, so that's already north of keeping our spirits high, seeing our offense be able to put up points. Our running back Caleb Johnson, he had about 175 yards, 2 touchdowns, did amazing job running the ball. We were losing a little bit. I think it was in the second quarter against Troy. I saw the box score and I got a little worried, and there were some butterflies in my chest that went off because it's Troy. I can't name anyone that has come from Troy or anyone that's won anything from Troy, but it was good to see the offense still be able to click, even though it is a gimme game. It's still nice to see Iowa offense actually do something to put more than 10 points in a game. So that was really nice to see. And with that, I think that we can now transition to the NFL games, which I assume you guys did watch today. And Arjun, I know you're a Cowboys fan, so I know it stings when the New Orleans Saints, riding high off of that week one domination of the Panthers, came into the Cowboys Stadium and gave them a butt whooping. Alvin Kamara having 4 total touchdowns. Derek Carr looked like an MVP. Rashid Shaheed was blazing down the field that whole game. What are your thoughts from a Cowboys fan's perspective?
First off, I would just like to say I called this game. I was at the barber shop yesterday. I was talking, and I said this would be a trap game. And I have a couple of questions for the Cowboys organizations. One, what Mike Zimmer? What happened to that number one defense in the NFL against the Browns last week? How are we gonna let Derek Carr, the cap eating monster, light us up? How is he gonna hit the yeehaw in our end zone? How is he gonna do that in our first home game of the season, huh? This was giving me flashbacks of the Packers game. I didn't watch football for the rest of the day. Honestly, I had a bad taste in my mouth. I went and I celebrated the Indian holiday today. Happy Onam to any viewers. But I went out and I didn't watch any more TV. I had this distaste in my mouth. Prescott had 2 picks. My fantasy team is not thriving. Prescott and CeeDee Lamb both suck except for that 65-yard touchdown. Um, I'm in shambles right now. I'm not gonna lie. Um, I'm kind of rattled. Uh, yeah.
Yeah. I think 93 points given up in the last two home games, including like the playoffs last year against the Packers for
Yo, shut up. Yo, shut up.
the
God,
Cowboys. So
I don't want to
not
hear a thing.
not great out of them. But I also think you can't not give credit to Carr and Co. I think they had a really nice game all around. Kamara was just so dominant. Nice screen pass for like 65 yards. His fourth touchdown was ridiculous. I don't know how he stayed up there. Defense played really strong. 2 picks on Dak, who is one of the better quarterbacks in the league, right? So I don't think we can discredit the Saints here, but the Cowboys are really bad overall. I,
Oh, yeah. hmm
I
I
mean, the
will say.
second,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. Keep going. Keep
No,
going.
you're good. You're good.
I will say that Kamara game today, it gave me flashbacks of the Christmas game
Christmas.
where
Hmm.
he scored 5 touchdowns. And
6.
oh, was it
Yeah.
6?
It was
It was
6,
against the
yeah.
Eagles. It was against the
Hmm.
Eagles, right? Yeah,
Hmm.
I was rattling in my boots.
Yeah. First player in NFL history to have 2 games with over 4 touchdowns and 170 yards. He's a weapon. But yeah, that secondary just looked bad. Diggs was not nice at all. Like the rest of them, they just weren't there, weren't up to
Yeah,
the standard.
Deron Bland was just
Oh, yeah.
He was just invisible. Like you physically couldn't see him. He wasn't making any plays.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw a stat. Correct me if I'm wrong. It was Alvin Kamara's 12th game with a rushing and receiving touchdown, which I believe that's tied third most in NFL history. I'm not sure if that's the exact stat, but it's something along the lines of that, just to show his dual threat versatility. And I was thinking that is this something that the Cowboys, is this just an early season concern, or is like just early season little hiccup, or is this something that can be a real concern? Because while they did do really well against the Browns last week, they only scored 14 points offensively. Their defense and special teams was really what took everything over. So I know as a Cowboys fan, are you more just worried that it's, early season, they're just trying to stretch everything out, and instead of being, okay, this is time to panic?
Oh, I'm terrified. Dak signed his extension around like an hour before kickoff of the Browns game. I remember seeing it in the car on the way to Penn State, and I was thinking, hallelujah, right? And now CeeDee Lamb signed his extension like a week before the season starts. They barely had like any time to work together in camp because CeeDee wasn't there. He was holding out, right? And also, this offense is pitiful. I do not know what is going on, honestly. I don't know if it's a different scheme we're running or if it's the lack of running backs. But I will say, Ezekiel Elliott, he's turning back into prime Zeke. You see the hurdle against the Browns? I'm still riding high off that. So what if he didn't do anything against the Saints? He still hurdled somebody.
Well, I do think that the Cowboys, it's a real mix of things. So Diggs and Bland both had very similar seasons where they had a ton of interceptions. Bland had the most pick sixes in a season in NFL history. And the thing that a lot of people also forgot is both in those respective years that they let up the most amount of yards when they were the closest defender. And when you have that, such a, it's either a grand slam or just a strikeout with not just one of your corners, but both of them. I think that just provides just how risky the defense is that if Bland or Diggs doesn't get two interceptions, the defense won't be that good because they're not the best cover guys where, they're like a Jalen Ramsey or a Pat Surtain. It's really just those types of playmakers. And it's also a mix of the offensive skilled position depth. I mean, your guys' starting running backs are Rico Dowdle and Ezekiel Elliott, who you say is going back to his prime, but if we all face it, he's a little bit washed. His prime, that was years ago. He's not going to be rushing for 1,700 yards and 15 touchdowns anytime soon. And then also your wide receivers, just how much they fall off from skill level and just type of production. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Brandon Cooks. He is easily one of the most underrated players in the NFL, and he's always had success wherever he goes. But going from a top five, top three, even maybe even arguably the top receiver in the NFL in CeeDee Lamb to someone like Brandon Cooks, who, yeah, he's pretty okay, but he's not going to be like another person that defenses are going to be game planning for. So I think that while it was nice that they re-signed Dak and CD, and then hopefully they will re-sign Micah Parsons, that's going to be, I think it's a third of their cap that they will be spending on three players. And that's just not a healthy way to try and build a winning and a competing team, especially one for the future. Because Dak is, 30 years old. CD Lamb, he's 27. Micah Parsons, he's still young. So I would be a little worried just about how the Cowboys season will go and in seasons later. But another team that had a really good game today, the Arizona Cardinals. And if you weren't already on the Marvin Harrison Jr. hype train, you are on now. It is all aboard. 2 catches, 2 touchdowns in the first half. And then he paired that with another 2 catches. He ended the game with 4 receptions for 130 yards, 2 touchdowns. Just an outstanding game from him. And the Cardinals were just dominating the Rams in almost every aspect of the game. I don't know if you guys watched it, but I was watching it, and the Cardinals were looking really good. Kyler Murray looked like he was back in his prime. And Cardinals could be a team to look out for, potential wild card team.
I
Yeah,
will say, my fantasy team took a huge hit today. Kyron Williams had 65 yards and a touchdown, but Cooper Kupp, I think, went out. He got injured,
injured.
his ankle. So he was doubtful to return, and then he was not returning. So I know that they lost 41 to 10. Is that right?
Yeah.
41-10. I do think this was a defining game for the Cardinals. I really think it was a confidence booster. Division opponent. I think they were at home.
Yeah, it was at Arizona.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were at home. I just think this was a good game for Kyler Murray. I feel like Kyler Murray has gotten a lot more disrespect than he deserves past couple of years from the Call of Duty allegations, if you guys remember that, for the lack of film study. And now he has a competent wide receiver and a better O line. Still not great, but a better O line. And I do think Kyler Murray could be somewhat decent this year, get back to where he was before his ACL injury.
Yeah. You would be naive, I think, to write off Maserati Marv after last weekend, one catch for 4 yards. Like it was his first game in the NFL. He's a rookie getting used to the system. Clearly today he proved he can be an elite receiver in this league. And I think the Cardinals are gonna be one of the most exciting teams to watch this year. Last week against Buffalo in Buffalo, they had a really close game there. Um, could have came away with the win. I think they were leading for a good amount of it. So they'll be for sure an exciting team to watch. I think the NFC West like as a whole will be really exciting to watch this year. And
Saints with back-to-back weeks of scoring 40 plus points, right? We all saw their dominant win against the Panthers, but in our minds, we're all just thinking, yeah, it's the Panthers, anyone can have a good game against them. We saw the Chargers do that tonight. But then they go into the Cowboys Stadium, and my goodness, they told them who is their daddy with, I think it
All
was a
right.
44-19 victory, guys. Are we thinking that the Saints are legit contenders in the NFC South this season?
I think so. I listened to my reasoning earlier. You'd be not the brightest of the bunch to rule out the Saints so far in that weak NFC South. They dominated all sides of the ball. Olave and Rashid look really strong as a 1-2 receiver duo. Kamara dominated. Derek Carr's looking like a demon. Um, Defense totally cooked Dak. O line, I think they were comfy. I didn't hear anything from Parsons or anyone. So just like utter dominance in their own backyard. I think they are legit this year.
All right. Call me an idiot. Call me a hater. Call me a D1 hater. Absolutely not. So what? They embarrassed my boys on national television at home in AT&T Stadium. First home game of the year by 25-ish points. I don't care.
Yeah, you do.
They suck. Yes, I do. I
Yeah, you
100%
do.
care. But I'm
Stop
going
the
to be a
cap right
hater, and
now.
I'm going to say no. They're going to win the NFC South. They're going to get an automatic playoff bid. They're going to be the 4 seed because they're going to win their division. But no, they're going to lose wild card round. Mark my words. They're going to lose to like the Eagles or something like that, or the Packers.
What does that make the Cowboys then? Where do they sit?
If we don't make it to the NFC Championship, I have to buy Mater Crocs. So
Those are sick. The tomato ones. I have
yeah,
a friend who has them. They're
yeah,
tough. That's
I have a bet. So I already bought the Fruity Pebbles. The
that's a
LeBron
win-win.
Pebbles. That's what I'm saying. I lost the bet to my cousin, so we got the Fruity Pebbles, and now we're on the deck for the Mater Crocs.
Well, I'll say that I think you got finessed, Arjun, because like I was saying earlier, their offensive playmakers, it's CD Lamb and CD Lamb. Brandon Cooks, he'd be good for like deep fantasy leagues, but defenses aren't definitely going to be thinking, "Oh no, we got Brandon Cooks this week. We're gonna
Yeah,
have like you're not gonna go into a game and you can't sleep the night before because Jalen Tolbert's on the other side of the ball, and that Deuce Vaughn guy, I mean, he can make a cut like there's no tomorrow." And the running back room, hate to say it, with a washed Zeke and an unproven Rico Dowdle, and Deuce Vaughn 5'5", 170. That's not exactly an NFL caliber type build, but I think you really got finessed in that bet, Arjan. And I do think that the Saints, it's a little kind of flipping the sides because in the first episode I talked about how the Saints are just stuck in the middle of mediocrity and that they haven't been able to get to that next level that they were with Drew Brees when they were consistently making NFC divisional rounds. And they're not also to the point where they're terrible and they're definitely going to be a top 10, top 15 pick. So I think I'm almost kind of eating my words, but I do think that if the Saints playmakers do stay healthy, they could be pretty deadly because we all know what Alvin Kamara could do if he doesn't get injured. And then Chris Olave, he's a young star, and Derek Carr, we saw last year that his chemistry with Olave wasn't there. It hadn't developed. You had to give it a couple seasons. It seems early on that it's really proving off for the Saints, and with a dominant win, I do think that they can make the playoffs. But contending with the Bucks Saints, that those are always interesting matchups that we'd like to see. So I think that it will be a pretty close competition for the division, but today in the NFL, we witnessed three major upsets. The Saints being one of them, the Raiders over the Ravens, and then we have the Vikings over the 49ers. Big upsets. We saw Justin Jefferson. He had a great game for the 49ers. They were running the ball pretty well, but the 49ers playmakers they had good games. I think Deebo Samuel had 8 receptions for 110 yards, and George Kittle, he had 7 receptions for 76 yards and a touchdown. Just Brock Purdy wasn't on top of his game. He had a costly turnover near the end of the game. So it's pretty interesting to see how this Vikings team is going to be this season with Sam Darnold at the helm of the ship.
I will say, I think the Viking system is suitable for most QBs, like they did with Nick Mullins. Now they have Sam Darnold. Unfortunate events for JJ McCarthy, but I do think Sam Darnold is still a valuable, and at this point, he's a veteran QB. He's been around the league. He's been to numerous teams. And he knows how to step up. And he took the Niners by surprise, it seems. And they were riding high off their Monday Night Football win against the Jets. And him and Justin Jefferson, I guess, had a connection, and it worked out for them.
Yeah, I was just surprised. I think out of the three big upsets that you mentioned, I think the Niners one was the big surprise that they were at home last week, Monday Night Football, and I think they really took care of business against the Jets, who on paper are really strong. I know today wasn't their finest win in the Aaron Rodgers era; it was their first one. Um, I think it was a really nice job by Sam Darnold and that team. Even though Jefferson he left, I think in the second or third quarter, injured, and they still found a way to get it done on offense, and the defense looked really strong too. So I think the Vikings could be okay this year.
I think that if the Jefferson injury isn't anything serious, which I don't think it will be, I think it's something really minor. I think this team could actually be exceed a ton of people's expectations because mind you that Jordan Addison was out of this game because of ankle soreness, and TJ Hawkinson, he's eyeing a return for week 7 against the Rams. So if you just think that when you have all these playmakers, you have Aaron Jones, Jefferson, Addison, and then a healthy Hawkinson, that could be a pretty dangerous offensive, uh, not trio, but just offensive group they have there. Along with line has been a little bit of concern for Vikings in the past, but now that you have one of the best left tackles in the game, Christian Darrisaw, he was signed to an extension, so that's really good that they kept him. So I think the Vikings are a little bit of a surprise team this year, and I think that while that was a little bit of an upset, I'm not sure any game surprised us more than how the Raiders Ravens game shook out because Ravens were controlling. It seemed that they were in control, but the score wasn't relevant of that. It was only 6-6 at the half, really low scoring game. You know, Ravens offense just couldn't get it going, and Gardner Minshew was making plays when needed. We saw that late in the game. He had a really good pass to Brock Bowers, which set up an Alexander Madison touchdown. And then they were just doing the little things and they just were beating the Ravens. I just think that was for me, that was the most surprising upset of the week.
Personally,
That's,
I do think the rate. Oh, sorry, Albert. I do think personally that the Lamar I know he had a good game. He did have a pick though, and he did miss 13 of his passes. Gardner Minshew went 30 for 38. Lamar, I think, went 21 for 34. I have to double check me on that, but I think he went 21 for 34. And even though everybody else had good games, Zay Flowers had a touchdown, Derrick Henry had a touchdown. Derrick Henry was great on the ground. Um, I do think it was just a game of minor errors, and I do think it was solely just a game that wasn't in favor of Baltimore from the jump.
Yeah, the Raiders just found a way to get done. I thought Minshew wasn't. I thought he did a good job. Brock Bowers and Devontae looked really strong, and I think they had the majority of their offense. The run game wasn't really there. Carlson stepped up. I think he had 4 field goals, right? So just putting those positions, I think Lamar just wasn't really there today. You said 13 missed passes. He had a pick, only 1 touchdown for him. So like not his best performance today.
I think the biggest thing why the Raiders won that game was Devonte Adams unleashed some type of inner beast that we had not seen that entire game. I mean, did you guys see that toe tap catch he had? That was
Hmm.
insane body control. That's bringing us back to the prime Devonte Adams that we all know and believe is one of the top receivers in the NFL. And the Ravens just couldn't contain him. I mean, any corner or safety he lined up on, he was running excellent routes, which he always does against anyone. And he just had a really good game. And he was the primary person that I believe really carried this Raiders team today. And finally, we can go to the last upset against the Bucks against the Lions. And I'll say the Lions did not. Jared Goff had probably his worst game out of all these past 2 seasons. He had 2 interceptions and 55 pass attempts. So you could tell that they were trying to chuck the ball that entire game, but he had 2 interceptions. One of them was pretty bad. He was hit as he threw, but he just threw it right to the safety. And I don't really know. It was just the Bucks really got a revenge game. It was a throwback to the playoff round. And Baker Mayfield was doing Baker Mayfield things. He was trying to limit the mistakes, making the big plays. I was a little worried seeing that it was early in the first quarter. He had 6 completions and they were all to Chris Godwin. So I was a little worried. I have Rashad White, my fantasy team. Wish we could have given him the ball a little bit more, but Bucks found a way to win, which seems that that's something that is part of their identity. Not always just having the biggest game stat wise, but just finding ways to win.
I will say there were a bunch of miscues from Detroit this game. I'm not sure if you guys saw the clip, but there was a clip where Jared Goff went up to the center trying to give commands to the O line, and the O line just snapped the ball, and it hit Goff, and then it ricocheted back to the defensive line, and the defensive line caught it, and that was a turnover, which I thought was crazy. Honestly, if you're a professional football team, you're having these miscues at home against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Nobody expected them to win. All the analysts, all the pregame crew, they all picked the Lions in around 10.5 point cover,
I
right?
will say I was watching I can't remember what channel it was on, but it was I think it might have been ESPN. It was with Rex Ryan, Randy Moss, and they were all picking the Lions, but I remember Alex Smith, he picked the Buccaneers to win this game because he thought something about Baker Mayfield. So I just want to say that at least one chose the Buccaneers to win this matchup.
Well, Alex Smith must have known something because it ended up being a super defensive game. Baker did show off a lot to Chris Godwin, like you said. And like Oliver was saying, Sam Laporta didn't really show up. And I don't think a lot of weapons for Detroit really showed up today.
Yeah, really quiet from Goff. I thought it came out the gate first quarter. Aiden Hutchinson had 3 sacks already. I thought that Detroit was going to dominate. They had a really nice, gritty win last week, and that come from behind in overtime. I'm forgetting who though. Um, doesn't matter. Anyways, I was surprised. I think Goff, right, 2 picks, 0 touchdowns. David Montgomery had a nice touchdown. He had like a good red zone drive there, but they were really lacking. I felt like in the final bit. Um, Laporta wasn't involved at all. I think Amon-Ra, he had a good game, 115 yards, something like that. So I think just poor from Goff. He's been a leader of this team for a while now. they're trying to get over that last hump, go back to NFC Championship, right? You can't be that costly. 300 yards, but two picks and no touchdowns, right? He needs to be better.
Yeah, so we've touched on, some bad fantasy games, Rashad White, Sam Laporta, but this week I have to say that was one of the more impressive fantasy weeks, even just starting off with the Bills Dolphins game. We saw Devon Achane and James Cook. They both exploded and had really good games. Kamara, we were talking about him earlier. He had 40-point games. J.K. Dobbins on the Chargers, he had a great game. Marvin Harrison Jr., he popped off. Malik Neighbors, he showed the Giants what he was capable of, but Jaden Daniels ultimately got that first win. So I thought this week was a really good fantasy week. So is there anyone that on your guys' fantasy teams that you really care about that thought did you a really good solid this week, or someone you played against that kind of broke your heart?
So personally, I played against Kamara, which it hurt. It hurt a little bit. But for my team, I need to check right now. But I'm pretty sure my defense was my leading scorer. Yep, the Steelers' defense dropped 12 points for me. You gotta love it. 13-6 gritty win against Denver. I'm very happy with the performance. I have a 7% chance to win, so I think I'm gonna throw in the towel and start getting prepped for next week. But my opponent had Kamara and Godwin and Harrison Butker, and he had Kyler Murray on the bench, but he still has Jalen Hurts to play. So down in the dumps right now, but we'll pick ourselves out of the hole next week.
You boys may not know this, but I will lead with my guys from like sixth grade, all of us from middle school together. I've currently lost the last 3 years in a row. I don't get it. I don't get it why. Cannot get it going in that league. Everything I touch, I got the reverse Midas touch. Everything I touch turns horrible. I'm getting killed this week. I started every year 1-0, and then I get killed week 2, and then I lose like a bunch. That happened again this week. So not feeling too optimistic. The punishment's pretty bad this year. Um, yeah, Malik Neighbors killed me. He had a really nice game. I played. Everyone popped off on his team. Diminutive from the boys. I had Stroud just threw a touchdown on Sunday Night Football, but besides that, that's my only touchdown of the day. So yeah, the boys are freezing cold.
Yeah, I think I had more of the same story. I think I had Patrick Mahomes was my only touchdown. I have Jordan Addison and Puka Nakua on my fantasy team, so they are both out. And I am in a 20-man league, and I was forced to start Michael Wilson and Josh Reynolds. So if that, and I have Johnny Munt as my starting tight end with DJ Hawkinson in my IR spot. So if that doesn't tell you about how desperate my team is and just how I'm barely scraping the bottom of the barrel, I don't know what else you can. And Oliver, I know you were talking about fantasy punishments. What is the punishment for your league?
So it's special just for me this year because I'm a 3-year loser in a row. So freshman year, it was clean balled, hit that Caillou cut, nothing there. Last year, I had to run a mile and after every lap, drink a Sprite and eat a banana, make you throw up. That was fun. And then this year, I had to get a bleached mullet. This beautiful Asian hair was bleached, and that took a while to grow back, just like the highlights are gone now. So this year, if I lose, it's a culmination of all three. Every bit of my hair in my body is gone, besides a row, like a reverse lawnmower here, and that's blonde. And I have to run 10 miles spraying bananas.
Oh my
But
god.
for anyone else, I live in Chicago, so for anyone else, you have to go on Michigan Avenue in February, being cold, in your underwear, and you have to play an instrument, it can be the drums, the violin, anything, until you get $50 from random people walking by, and then
Oh my
that
god.
money goes to the winner. So high stakes, not feeling too optimistic again this year. I drafted horribly. Um,
Oh my
I hate
god.
fantasy football. So
Hold on, you're
That
gonna get arrested. You're gonna get arrested for public indecency or something. Oh my
now,
god.
if there's a will, there's a way.
I've never heard of any fantasy football punishment, anything remotely close to what you have been through or what you can possibly go through, Oliver. I just know that fantasy punishments, I've I've never had a punishment happen to me in any of my leagues I've done. But I know that the milk mile, that's obviously a pretty big punishment. I'm not quite sure if you run a lap and then you drink like a thing of milk. Is it like do you run an exact mile
That's how you're supposed
for
to do. Yeah, they said milk mile was too easy because I'm a big chocolate milk connoisseur. You know me.
Oh no.
So spraying bananas it was because that makes you throw up, and then yeah, it's after every lap you have to drink and eat it.
Oh, but like on like those types of milk miles, do you actually run a mile or do you just I've heard that you just drink a cup after every lap until a gallon is gone?
Oh, well, yeah, we didn't have a gallon, right? So I had 4 cans of, or it was a small track. So 8 cans of Sprite. No, no, no. 4 cans of Sprite, 4 bananas, and then after every lap, had to stop and finish one.
Man,
Oh
I,
my
I
gosh.
still have to I still have to do my milk mile for my seventh grade fantasy league.
Oh, you're a
And
fraud.
Oh, so you're
well,
oh
hold
okay.
on. It wasn't my fault though, because nobody was around. So if they're watching this, we got to get this together. So I cannot process milk. I don't know if you know this about me. I'm not lactose intolerant, but it'll come in one way and it'll leave the exact same. So I had to. I think I was supposed to drink a quart every lap, and then if I didn't finish in 9 minutes, or 9 minutes, or like 8:45, I had to do it again and again until I get it. So, and then this year, I don't even know what the punishment is. I think it's the cage, the condiment cage, or just.
It was
Oh.
supposed to be that last year. My mom wouldn't let that slide, so it was a bleach mullet.
But a mullet. You're
Yeah, I have a photo of it.
you're wait.
You
So
boys are different in Chicago. Holy
Gotta
smokes.
wait,
honor it.
hold on, Oliver. So your Indian dad let you get a bleach mullet?
He wasn't very happy with it. He made me dye it back in like March,
Yep. I
so
was gonna
like
say there is no way my dad is letting that happen.
he was fuming.
It's okay. I've been in the boat with you, Oliver. I went bald my freshman year for it's a swim team tradition.
Oh, that is the ugliest thing I've ever seen. No diss. No
Holy
diss at all.
jawline, is that a
Oliver, bro, thank God. Oh my God, that is so
And like I
nasty.
got the Asian hair right, so it's got no movement. So that's why I got it short now. The ladies like it
Okay.
short, so
No, they don't, man. Oh,
All right, we kind of backtracked off of sports and we got more into hair and Indian parents and their how they allow bleach, but we're just gonna jump back and I'm just gonna list some things and I'm gonna ask you guys to say if it's a true or a false statement. So, do you think that the Chargers will make the AFC playoffs this year?
yeah, sure. Wait, you
I
seriously don't think
disagree.
they'll make it?
Nah,
Look, I know I'm a
they won
Michigan
today,
hater.
right? I mean,
Yeah, it was against the
um,
Panthers.
come on now, it's Mickey Mouse. I think that the AFC is really strong this year. Bengals got to a slow start. They lost today, but good game in Arrowhead per usual. I think they'll bounce back there. Ravens will be fine. I think they'll make it. Chiefs obviously, Bills obviously,
Texans is a shoe-in.
Texans,
Maybe Jets.
maybe Jets. They started slow, but on paper the roster is really strong.
They
I
won in Tennessee today.
if the Chargers get in, they'd sneak in as like a 7 or 6. I don't think it's possible. Like because the West is who's in the West?
Raiders, Chiefs,
Oh
Chargers,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Chiefs win that divisions. Like they have to.
Broncos.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't think so. It'd be
I think
close
they'll
though.
get in as a 7 seed or 8 seed. So
What do you
Oh, is it
think?
8 seeds?
I
I thought
think
there's
aren't
7.
there 8 seeds?
I thought there's 7.
No, it's seven seeds because one team gets the bye. No, you're right.
So, what do you think would be the biggest factors that would go into dictating whether the Chargers could make it as a lower seed or miss on it entirely?
Joe Alt staying healthy. The
That's a good
offensive
one.
tackle from Notre Dame. The highlights are crazy. You see him. I don't know who they played week one, but he didn't let any penetration get
Yeah.
to Justin Herbert. He's a stud. He's
He'll
big lineman from Notre Dame, which is a very good school for linemen in general. And he likes fishing. Very subtle Instagram. He's just there to play football. Doesn't do anything crazy. He's gonna be a Hall of Famer, future Hall of Famer. You can shoot with him.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's built like an all pro. Like he'll be good. I think it's their offensive weapons. Saw Keenan Allen leave, Austin Eckler leave. I don't know who the running back is now. I think McConkey and Quentin Johnson have to do a really big job here, stepping up and having those pieces around Herbert. I think if they step up, then they for sure have a chance.
J.K. Dobbins.
There it is. He scored today.
Hmm.
So yeah.
He's stud.
Hmm.
Okay, so this next one, I'm just going off the top of my dome here. So, do we think that the Packers can win the NFC North?
Okay, now
Next question.
win second place. Yes. Win no. I think even though I don't want to jump to conclusions, this is a bad game for the Lions. The Lions will win the NFC North this year. Vikings will get last. Hey, I see that face, Oliver. Don't think I don't see that. Bears and Packers will fight for the second spot in the playoffs. I don't see enough from the Packers right now, especially with Jordan Love going down in Brazil. I don't see it.
You guys are winning the North.
Yeah, yeah. Settle
Stop
down,
playing with me.
Cowboy. Settle down, Cowboy.
Dude, you
Nah,
can't you
Bears.
can't even get that helmet on. That was
No,
just like
no, dude,
resting
look,
on your
You
temple.
got a big head.
it's like a fraudulent thing. Like, look.
Oh.
But the Bears are winning the North. Um, Caleb started out good. We're down 13-3. We're down 13-3. It's our ball. It's our ball. Um, I think the Texans are a hard opponent. If we, oh my God, the Texans are a hard opponent. We should win though. Schedule's not too bad this year. I think Green Bay, you can roll them out. Love is they had a nice win today, but it's the Colts. Um, I think the Colts can be good. I'm not too high on them personally. Love going out really hurts them though. I think that really puts a wrench in their plans. I think between the Lions and the Bears, and I think that bias. So the Bears will come out on top.
Yeah, you're just as delusional as me, Cowboys fan. We're the same,
All right, bro.
except we have a shot of winning. You guys are gonna deal with third.
Keep sleeping on us.
Yeah, I will. Don't worry. I ain't losing sleep.
Okay, so I have one last question. It's not a true or false, but this is going to be the last thing of the episodes. Who do you think is in a worse situation, the Panthers or the Giants?
The Giants. The Daniel
Mm,
Jones contract is so horrendous.
that's fair. I
I
think it
mean,
might be the Panthers.
oh wait, no, I'm gonna switch that to the Panthers because the Panthers don't have the draft picks.
Yeah, they like that trade that the Bears made last year is going to be looked at with like the Ricky Williams and the Herschel Walker trade. It was really like I think the Bears totally came out of there fleecing them. Bryce Young for sure has potential. There's no piece. There are no pieces around him there. Adam Thielen clearly doesn't want to be there, and he's not that great. The defense is really poor. Besides Brian Burns, who I think he'll make his departure soon. The Bears still have their second round pick this year. Like they just look bad. They look like a peewee team out there.
Might
It's
I
not.
might I actually add that Brian Burns was traded to the Giants in the offseason.
Oh my God, I knew that. I'm an idiot. There we go. I was like, I think you did, but
They still have Dexter Lawrence, Sexy
and
Dexy,
JC
there on the
Horn
line.
and they have Pants and JC Horn, so Horn will get dealt
Oh,
because
sorry.
he's like there.
Now I'm thinking of Giants.
Wait, I knew that. What am I saying?
No, honestly, I agree. The Panthers are in such a horrible situation. Also, did you see the news about the management and the story about the restaurant? I'm sure if you know this, there was an ESPN story, and there was this Charlotte restaurant, and they had a sign, and it was like the Panthers GM's name, and it's like, you please, please fix this franchise around, otherwise we are not going to serve you, or something like that. And he was like, they were talking super degrading about the team on the sign, but it was just casual sports stuff. Like if you walk into the city, you'll see that at every single bar, right? But the Panthers owners went up to the restaurant, started demanding that they take down the sign, all of this, all of that. It was bad. It was bad press. I just don't think the team is in a great situation right now. I think they were like the commies a few years ago.
So you
With
guys are in
management.
agreement that the Panthers are in a worse situation, despite the fact that the Giants gave Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes, a humongous payday, and could very well be his last season as a starting quarterback.
Wait, worse position than who? Real quick.
Sorry?
Arjun,
It's
in their worse position than who? You said?
no, I'm saying they're like in a bad position, like the commies a
Oh,
few years ago, like with management.
commies?
Oh,
Commanders.
Commanders, football team, football team.
I think you meant like communists. Sorry. All
Yo,
right,
what?
sorry.
Okay. All right. Well, I hate to end on that type of note, but that will conclude another episode of the Coastal Feuds podcast. I'm here with Arjun Pirani and our guest Oliver. Oliver, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. We'd love to have you back again some other time.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Make sure to comment, subscribe to the channel down below, and we make sure to follow our socials, Instagram and Twitter at Coastal Feuds. See you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in.